Okay, so to start off with the PHP file, we first give the HTML tag because PHP is embedded within HTML. Let's just close the HTML tag again. Okay, so within HTML tag, we write a tag called $PHP. Now, this tag can be closed with just question mark and greater than symbol. Now, what we write within these two tags will all be considered as PHP code and executed using the PHP compiler. Okay, so right now we need to write the PHP code. Now, the syntax in PHP is such that all the variables, you don't need to mention their data type. So all the variables can store any kind of data, and each variable must start with the symbol $. So let's create a variable $user ID and another variable $pass for storing the password. Okay, so what this $user ID will store is, it will store the user ID that we send from the index.html file. So we need to import it using a method called $_request. Now what this $_request is required for is, because it's all in caps, so request $_request. So why we need this $_request is, since we are using the post function in the index.html file, we need to use a request function to get the data. If we had used the default get function, we can replace this request with a $_get to retrieve the data. But right now we have used the post function, so we have to use request. So $_request and the name of the variable that we want to retrieve. So there I had given it as user ID, so we will give it as user ID as well. And then for password, again follow the same principle, $_request, and within that we saved it as pass, so we will write pass and then terminate each statement with a semicolon. It's same as any other programming language, so it terminates with a semicolon. So now we've retrieved the data. Now we need to connect to the database. So we will make a connection with the database using some pre-built functions and then store the connection in a variable. Now why do we need to store the connection in a variable? We can store the connection in a variable so that we use it as a key to connect to the database in any other further requirement. So I'll create a variable called $con and use the function MySQLi. It's MySQLi, not just MySQL _connect, and within that, and these are not square brackets. The previous request functions use square brackets, but this has the normal brackets. So inside that we have to give the address of the DBMS server. So it's localhost colon 3306, which is the default port number for the MySQL database, comma the username, that is root, comma the password, which if you remember is blank by default. So we've created a connection using this statement and we have stored it inside $con. Now we shall use $con like a key to the database each and every time later on. Okay, now next what we must do is select which database we want to work upon. So we have to say MySQLi _select _db, and within the brackets we need to use the key to access the database server. So con comma the name of the database, that is example. Okay, so we have created the database. Now all of these are functions that have been imported directly into PHP. Now that's one of the advantages of using WAMP or XAMPP. They import all the required database functions and they make it quite easy for you to code it. You don't have to import something, you don't need to include something, none, you're just freed of all that hassle. And in PHP, the underscore character is used like the dot operator in Java. So this is the MySQL class, which has another class within it called select, and inside that there's this function called DB. So I hope it's relatable. That's similar to, its working is similar to how you use Java, like math.pow, where math is the class and dot is the operator and pow is the function. So this is all similar to that. Now next what we must do is write a query. So we can write a query and store it in a variable. So we'll just create a variable var and write a query and store it within it. So the query will be, so for this we need to check if the user ID and password are if there are any rows inside the users table where the user ID and password match. So if there is one row, that means the user is successfully logged in. So the statement is select star from users, where user ID equal to, within single quotes, I'll finish this later, just letting you know, since user ID is varchar, we need to use single quotes and write what are we going to compare with it inside single quotes, right? And pass is equal to, again within single quotes, because password is also a varchar, and semicolon. So right here we need to check, we need to install whatever the user has sent. Now we have stored it in $user ID, and PHP is so strong that all that you need to do is just write $user ID and it will automatically replace this variable with its value. So you don't actually have to worry about giving the variable, or is it the variable or is it the value. Anything with dollar starting there, the PHP code will automatically change, will accept it as a variable and then replace it with its value. So we actually will have whatever we enter over there directly being placed here. And similarly for pass, I will say pass right here. So that's it. So we are done. That is a query. I'll just extend this a bit. Okay, so that's a query done right there. So now next we need to execute the query. So to execute the query, the function is MySQL underscore query. So inside this you say $con, comma $con, comma $variable. So whatever you type inside here, the connection, and then there is a $variable. The $variable stores the query. So this query will get executed and this function returns the result set. So we will use the result set and we need to know how many rows are getting sent back. So we write one more function which will take this result set. So it will be MySQLi underscore num underscore rows. So MySQLi underscore num underscore rows. So this function will count the number of rows that are there in the result. So if the user is given the proper user ID and password, it should return 1. So you just say MySQLi equal to 1. If it is equal to 1, it should return it. So I'll put the entire thing inside and put a if statement. So if the number of rows of this query is equal to 1, that means the user has successfully logged in. Now if you look at the way that I've written the if statement, it's pretty much exactly same as C, C++, Java or any other usual programming language. So PHP isn't actually completely a different bucket of fish. So fine, so right here we say echo, oh sorry, it isn't bucket of fish, it's cup of tea, sorry about that. It's not a completely different cup of tea. Okay, so since the PHP code is completely embedded within the HTML code, whatever you print, now echo is the command used to print. So if you print something inside PHP, it will go out of PHP and it will become a HTML statement. So inside this, whatever I type will be considered as HTML. So let's say I can give normal HTML tags such as BR, because whatever I want to print, I don't want it to be printed right at the top. I want to print somewhere right in the middle. So just give a few BRs, and this is one of the best uses of HTML, because HTML you don't need to write the code one below the other. You can just write it side by side, just like in one line. The entire HTML page could be just in one line because it just reads tag after tag. Okay, so we got in 3 BRs, and let's just say welcome, because if the user successfully log in, it should show welcome. Okay, I'll also give a center tag right here, center tag, so that it gets displayed right in the middle of the page, and I'll put another center. I'll just close the center tag. Like I said before, you don't need to close the BR tags, they work just fine without that. And then let's write a else statement for this. Again, very similar to any other programming language. If and else, the structure of if and else. If some condition, then within that you can write something, and then else, and then you can write the other condition. Okay, so inside this we'll just say echo, and within double quotes write again in the same way br and br. I can just copy it from the previous one, but it's okay, shouldn't take too long to type. It's all, if you want to become a software engineer, you gotta be typing at this thing all your life, so get used to it. Invalid credentials. So invalid credentials stands for either a wrong password or a wrong user ID. So if he enters a wrong password or a wrong user ID, it should print invalid credentials, or if he enters the proper username and password, it should just say welcome. So good on that. So we're done with both of these, and that's the end of the HTML page right here. So we're done with the PHP program. Now we just need to save it as a .php file. And remember, again, you have to save it in the www folder. So my www folder is in my computer, C drive, WAMP64, might be WAMP x86 for people who use 32-bit operating systems, and then the example folder, and inside this I will name it as all files, and this will be index.php, and I can click on save. So it's already been saved, and right now let's just go down here and see that the localhost server, all the services are running. Just to make sure everything will work properly, I'll just restart the servers. As you can see, as soon as I click on restart, one by one each one of them have stopped, and now none of them are running, and it goes to red, and then it goes to yellow as one starts or two starts, and if all three start, bam, it's up to green. So right there we are done, the servers are running. So I'll just give it some time so that all the servers can start. It might show you green, that just means that the initialization started. So just give it some time so that it can start properly, and once it is done, we'll start localhost. Let's go to the WAMP localhost server /example/index.html. So as soon as I enter, it should open the index.html file like so. And as you can see, the use of the placeholder gives a watermark type background, and when we enter something, this thing will get replaced. So when I start entering something, it gets replaced. So this is a nice little cool feature that you can implement. It looks nice. And so let's just try with proper credentials, root, and then root. And when I click on login, it should send whatever I have typed here to index.php, and index.php will connect to the database and check if my username and password are entered correctly, and if so, it should print welcome. So let's see, there we go, it prints welcome, and then we are done. So this is for the wrong one, I mean for the right credentials. And now let me give a wrong password. I mean Chrome default stores your last username, so but the password gets removed. No, this is one of the, again, the perks of using the password, the input type as password, because it will have all the structures of a password which are normally there. So let me give ABCD as a password and click on login. It says invalid credentials, and if I give the proper password root and change the username into ABCD, it should give invalid credentials again because the username is wrong. So there we are. So we've just created this thing, the login page, and this is pretty simple. PHP runs so beautifully. It's very simple. You do not have to break your head over so much. And if you just notice, when I'm going to enter root and root, click on login, you can see right here it says index.php, which means the index.php page has been called, and it's showing this output. Now, as I was saying, the difference between the get and the difference between the get and the post functions. So what happens if we change index.html? I'll open it with sorry, I opened it with Google Chrome, sorry about that. Notepad, yeah. So I'll change the method to get. So when I change the method to get and save it, then you shouldn't open it like that, because that will just open it on the system. It will not open it from the server. You just need to go and type localhost. It should hopefully give you autocomplete like that. So here it is. So I will say root, and then root, which is my password. Click on login, and as you can see, when you put a get method, what happens is it, along with the URL, it sends whatever data you send. So if you can see that, I'll just turn on the magnifier right here so that it becomes a bit clear. Thank you. Yeah, as you can see, user ID is equal to root and password is equal to root. So whatever I did not want to send is all being sent right there. I mean, who would want their user ID and password to be displayed like that? So never use the get command if you are sending some kind of data that is very, very valuable, something like your password. So make sure to change that into the post function and save it. Okay, and now if I reload the thing, oh, it won't work like that. Okay, so I just have to say root again, because it won't work because no data has been sent to it. Like, oh, okay, I have to restart the server. You can't just start something like that. So I'll just try. Most of the time what happens is the server doesn't acknowledge any kind of sudden change so far, so you need to refresh a couple of times and then the changes will occur. So just because immediately just press back and then you enter something, it doesn't work, that doesn't mean that the code hasn't changed. It just means the server hasn't recognized it. So just refresh the page a couple of times so that the change can be accepted by the server. And right now, as you can see, sample in this example, it becomes index.php and none of the credentials are being sent. So that was the tutorial for PHP using uh, PHP and MySQL to create your database project. Hopefully it was helpful. And just do the same thing for XAMPP, just that in XAMPP the starting page, I mean the controls are not like this where you just click it. It just opens a proper dialog box inside which there's a start PHP option, a start SQL option where you can start each and every service individually, and make sure to start them manually and then write the code. It also has the same PHP MyAdmin interface, and it also has the same Apache server and the same applications. So you don't have to worry about anything like if I know WAMP, will I be able to do it in XAMPP? Both of them work in the same fashion. And if you people still do find XAMPP to be quite hard, I will be happy to make another video on XAMPP on your request if you do need it. Okay, thank you.